PR Connections Radio presents.
Hi, welcome. Welcome to Liberating Menopause. Thank you, PR Radio Connections, for hosting this program. I'm very excited today to be talking about, today we're going to be talking about perimenopause. My name is Lisa Vasquez. I am your host. So looking forward to this conversation because my whole goal is really opening up this conversation so that I can bring attention, especially into the workplace. Because, I mean, in the year 2023, 54 million women had entered the work field. I mean, we're almost half the percent of the labor force in working women. And so with that, this is where most of the women are, and most of the challenges women go through are happening, but we don't even know it's happening because this conversation on hormones and changes with so many women, like 6,000 a day that go into menopause, these conversations of the challenges and changes have never really been brought out loudly. So we never had a way to prepare for this. There's nothing that when I started working in breast healthcare, breast cancer, we started talking about breast awareness, breast, you prepare for all these things with self-breast exams. There was different things to do as education started to grow and increase in that field. Well, today with menopause, what we're hearing is when everybody's hitting the wall and they're already there and things have already accumulated and blown up like a snowball effect, and symptoms that started out very minor but were not listened to because this isn't something that we as women pay attention to think that this is a problem. And so with that, by the time you hear about it, all of a sudden it's the best kept secret, and finally you're getting your results from your doctor because you're complaining and saying these are things that have been happening, and you never put two and two together, and now he says right there that this is menopause. And it just depends where you're at in on your day when that note comes in, that phone call comes in. I mean, that has to be, well, right there, women, I mean, it's a very confusing state because now you could be standing next to your partner and suddenly look up and say, I've been told I'm in menopause. And now, the partner has to be thinking, oh, wow, well, that's why all these things were going on. But for you, you're thinking of everything that you went through and didn't even know this was happening. So this is why I'm I really want to talk about the symptoms that occur prior to having menopause, because these are the leads. This is what leads us into that road. So if we're aware and we're taking notes on this idea, we can have a better way of coming into that flow. And this way, when we hit that wall, we'll be prepared and know, because there's going to be the awareness. You're going to be aware of what's coming at you. And then you're going to have actions in your own self, because we really are our first doctor. We know when these things are happening to us. We're the ones that, want to figure it out. I mean, right away now that we have Dr. Google over here, everybody runs there. But you have to understand that Dr. Google, he doesn't really know everything about you. All he can tell you mostly is those symptoms. And that's why my program, this is all information and educational basis for you to really grow yourself in this form of, there's a beauty side to this. And this is what I tell you all the time, that as bad as we've heard menopause and the sadness about menopause, the breakdown when you hear you have menopause, these things begin to take over our nervous system because we keep growing that in our minds and we keep developing toward this force that it's just going to be bad. But if we can change that whole idea and change the way we're having our body receive it, this can have a whole nother great effect on you, because this is a process and we have to go through it. Just like when you have a fever. I mean, you're not happy you're sick. You're not happy you're vomiting, or, you're having, irregular bowel movements all of a sudden, or you're coughing and sneezing. But it's going to pass. You're going to get through it. It might take a week, but it does. And then suddenly the body comes back. And that's the whole idea with our body. It wants to default to be healthy. The last thing it wants to do is to default to be broken. It doesn't really have that. But if the armor provided to the body is sustainable to help it grow as it's developing through this, with nourishment, the foods, the exercise, the mindset, the meditation, the sleep programs, all these things, if they really stayed in balance, the body stays in balance. And the minute one of those is out, the body will let you know, because the body, we're just like a big purse. It's just a big purse. We are a big bacteria to the body. And once one of those little bacterias are off, it's going to let us know, and we'll be feeling the effects. But if we're going through this and taking care of ourselves, then the body really doesn't have to respond, because it's happy going with the flow, because you're giving it everything that it needs. So, talking about, for instance, irregular periods. So we're talking about the ages of 30 to 40, because this is where there's a lot of severe issues that take place, but they grow into very bad developing problems if they're not addressed, right? And this is, again, where I'm telling you, we always hit the wall with menopause. All of a sudden, we just find out we're in menopause. Nobody stops to say, hey, you're in perimenopause. Sometimes they'll just say, it's just your age. And it may be, but again, I was talking on my last episode about the culture care, and everybody has a different care for themselves. So in my Hispanic culture, we have a lot of vaginal health issues, and we have a lot of weight gain. There's illnesses in the high blood pressure and diabetes. That's really big. So talking about that just with the Hispanic culture, and then, with the African American culture, there's just a higher stress level, there's diabetes, there's other issues. But again, and those cultures, they're all broke down into different ways and forms that we are being affected, having these illnesses. But they're changes, actually, I should say, not illnesses. They're changes that are taking place, except for the diabetes and the high blood pressure. Those are things that have contracted because of the buildup of what we have done without every year, as our bodies change, and every decade as we change, we're supposed to really kind of cut down on things. We're not supposed to be enforcing that we're going to eat that double cheeseburger or things like that. Our whole lifestyle and food and the way we live is a big part of the effects of what goes wrong with our imbalances when it comes time to feeling all these symptoms that women go through. We have these mood swings, and, we're not, well, we could be thinking maybe it's my period coming on, and this may be true, but sometimes those mood swings are there just a little longer than normal. And it. One time I had a patient, and she was telling me all about that. She knew when she was having these rages and all that, and she's like dismayed, like, why is this happening? But it was listening to how she was upset with herself, because she knew that these rages were coming out of her, and she didn't understand it. And that's what happens sometimes. We lose ourselves in this conversation with ourselves, because we don't recognize ourselves. Like, wow, where did that come from? How did I do that? Talking about brain fog, sometimes you have the word right there. It's right there at the front of your head, and there's the lapse, and it doesn't come forward. That's another thing. These are small triggers, but we continue on. There's when we have weight gain. Again, so I was 30 years old when I had this weight gain, not knowing the trends and chartering the flow as I do today with the understanding. I can only go back now, look at my life, see my 20s. I was 120, 125 mostly in my 20s, right? And all of a sudden, I'm leaving Chicago, moving to Las Vegas, relocating, and all of a sudden, it's like a light turned on, and there I was, and I was 163 pounds. It's so funny because nobody ever knew that. I even have a picture that I had hidden for so long. And then I'm going to show it in one of my books that's coming up about this because it's so interesting. I mean, I couldn't believe it until I saw that picture. I didn't know, I didn't realize, and I didn't see it. I believed that it came from my whole great party life I had. Well, hanging out in Chicago, I had a great time growing up, and I had a lot of fun, and I missed a lot of sleep, and I did a lot of drinking here and there, and then of course after the drinking, then you have all these intermittent meals that suddenly you're going to go, and you're not even thinking, oh my God, I'm having a 3-course meal at 10 o'clock at night. Now I'm going to go home and go to sleep, and maybe I'll sleep, maybe I won't. It just depends. But by all those fluctuations in my life, so here I am, I hit 30 and say, oh my gosh, look at it. Was a very scary thing for me. And, being from the 80s, we came up with, there was a lot of different diet pills, a lot of different diet programs that were taking place at that time. So this was a big factor. So right away, you're going to run to one of those. And normally it's a box program, right? But nobody tells you, if you take a box program, you're only going to increase maybe 3 or 4 times more than that if it comes back, because it can only control you for so long, because that's not really your lifestyle. So this weight gain that suddenly snuck up, it took me 3 years to lose all that. And it was not easy, and it was very complicated, and it was very upsetting and sadness. And wow, I was like, wow, this is 30. This is crazy. And so, but feeling that and knowing that. And so women today, we just keep gaining weight, and we're gaining weight, and we take that weight even from the babies, having babies, and now that weight gain just stays, and nobody starts to really take the initiative to want to change that, because they feel like this is the way it goes. Well, there's not, of course, exercise, changing the lifestyle, looking at what you're eating, figuring out, wow, that doesn't work for me anymore. I got to do this. I mean, pasta, I know I'm an addict when it comes to pasta. I love that stuff. I could eat pasta by the box. So I don't buy it. I don't bring it in the house. And luckily, my husband doesn't need it either. So it's not a big thing missing at my table. But when I do go out, I do take advantage of that moment if there's a meal that's going to have a Italian spice to it. So that'd be the only time, because I know I'm not in control. I'm not. I love that stuff too much. I love any kind of noodle, actually, So I know how I have to watch myself. I know what I can do. But as you go through this, you don't know that. I mean, again, going through the changes of these menopause and perimenopause moments. So after all that challenge in my life, now I get married. And now, what is that, like 10-year bliss or something, that suddenly all this stuff's going to happen all over again, because now you've been gorged and all this fun stuff, and you're going out to dinners, and you're having all this good time. And if you're married and have children, you're eating some of the children's leftovers before you clean the dishes or stuff. All these little things that add up. Next thing you know, what I turned out to be, by 46 years old, I was 173 pounds. That was even more scary than what I learned in 163. I mean, I'm only so far from 200. Scared as hell. I was really scared. I was like, oh my gosh. But again, I don't know. I'm 45. I was at the height of perimenopause, getting ready for menopause. But I don't know this. Nobody's telling me that. Nobody's talking. I'm just seeing this expansion, and I'm getting, it was very scary. So this is where I began with a coach. I saw a girl. She was entered into a contest. He's supposed to renew her and change her life, the ultimate me. And so she did. She came back. She was beautiful. I mean, she lost everything. She was good. So I hired him, and he became my coach, and he taught me so much. I mean, it was great. That was the first time I had a coach. And it was a wonderful thing, because at the time, 46 years old, I couldn't even do a push-up. So that's the time I was going to learn it. That was a good time. Now, push-ups are nothing. But at the time, just the struggle, just to even think. I mean, I hated when he would come to me and it's time to do those push-ups, but it was something I had to do. And today he'd probably be so proud of me, because I could do some push-ups. Anyway, so these are some of those things that sneak up on you, but you don't know. And I only know because of again, the women that I was working with, and now I put this all together after all these years of hormone imbalances, seeing it around me, seeing the decline in women's health, seeing all these different things. Joint pain. You could have joint pain, and suddenly these aches and pains, they're again brought up to be probably just an age thing because I had those joint pains. I put it to my job. I used my hands a lot in radiology. So there was a lot of repetition of clutching and grabbing and holding. And so I put it up to, come on, it's like 40 years, right? I mean, aches and pains, and these are, but no, because when you lose a lot of hormones, you're going to have a lot of pain. There's so many different things that um, change because of the drop of hormones, but nobody says that. Nobody says that you're going to have that brain fog because you're missing I think of it as a little teleprompter, and it's rolling through and scrolling, right? And suddenly it hits a word, but you can't say it. And there's your moment of lapse, and there goes the brain. Then it keeps going, the prompter, you're, talking, doing what you're doing. But these things happen and they are not recognized, even with hair thinning. When when I was in 2015, had a lot of stress the years before that. And I didn't know anything because I wasn't a health coach until 2017. So I didn't learn all this internal connections and that communication yet. I didn't have that behind me. I had the radiology lens that I was looking through and seeing the symptoms and seeing the illnesses occurring and seeing the body break down with cancers and, the brokenness of the body. But I didn't know any of that stuff. And so here I am, 2015, after coming out of about 6-7 years of a big wilderness of mine. I was losing my hair and it was thinning. But now what am I putting that to? I'm blaming it on hair color. I'm not thinking that it's thinning because of my hormones, and nobody told me. And it wasn't again until I became a health coach and started learning all these things about nourishment, nutrition, feeding the body, drinking water. All these episodes on food, nutrition, things like that, I'm going to be hosting here because I really need you to be informed about this. But first, I need you to really meet the characters that you're playing around with, because if you don't understand that you're feeding your estrogens, progesterones, and testosterones, and how you want to keep that balance for yourself, you wouldn't understand any of this. So we're starting with just these stories of maybe you'll recognize that you've been having joint pain, and you're only 32, maybe 33. These are small signs, small symptoms, but they eventually evolve where, people end up with carpal tunnel or, tennis elbow or frozen shoulders. There's different things that can be happening, but a lot of times it could be a hormone, low hormone fill up in your body that's happening. You're losing it now. So these changes have to be recognized and noted. Even if you're not going to run off to go speak with your doctor about this, at least start to carry or consider a little health journal for yourself so that you're writing these things down, because they're so sporadic and they happen monthly, but you're not really noting it until a real ache and pain comes. So now we're going to go into a lot of breast pain issues. There's a lot of breast pain that takes place at the age of 30. I see it all the time. And these fluctuations, because in their 30s is when a lot of fluctuations take place. So what you have to try to see with the breast pain is it related to your cycle, or is it a chronic pain that's just happening? Is it a fluctuating pain? Did I have it last month at this time? Was it when? All these things will correlate as you begin to develop a system in yourself to note this in your own life, to follow the trail, because there's a trail that's being set up for you. And if you don't look back and see all this, you can't put it together. And when you come to your doctor, all you'll say is, 2 months ago, I had some breast pain and it was over here. But that was 2 months ago. And you probably had it again, but it wasn't the same pain, so you weren't thinking about it. But there was probably Sometimes it could be itching pain, it could be burning pain, it could be a shooting pain, it could be a shocking pain, a stabbing pain. These are all the pains, and I tell you this because, of course, I learned all this through all my women and all their symptoms when they would come in for their mammograms. But I was really concerned because I was seeing in these later days of my career that they were younger and they're all being sent for breast pain. And when I did talk with them and during our interviews, a lot of it did seem that it was related to their cycles, and they even felt that it was related to their cycles. But because it's pain, we have to really recognize and pay attention to the pain and note it when we see our doctor, do whatever it is we need to do to clear that. But once you know that it's cleared, then you start following the cycle of how your trend is going, because you're going to be fluctuating. All these changes are going to be appearing. And by bringing this to you is because when you're in the workplace, these conversations aren't being held. These are choices and things that we as women have to do to take care of ourselves and keep our health balanced. And by noting these things, I mean, to see the brain fog, I mean, if you just recognize it, and it could be a glimpse, it could be nothing. I know that my first one I had was about 7 years ago, and I didn't think anything of it at all. But now when I started feeling more, before I became more balanced, I was like looking back at that day saying, wow, that's what that was. And today, this is why I'm writing my books. And I started with the menstrual cycle because now I can take it all the way back from my menstrual cycle, starting with cramps and pains and all those things. Do you know that even during our menstrual cycle, there are signs of symptom problems that are happening just by the different colors of the bleed? It's interesting, but we don't know that. And so now back in our 30s, when we start having a slower flow and things change on that, we're not thinking that, oh, it came lighter this month. Oh, well, but we're not thinking that that's because one of the tanks in our bodies is running out of something. No, we're not. But that's what's happening. And this is how we start going into the fluctuations of your hormones, your menstrual cycles changing. 1 month you might have it, 3 months you don't. Now all of a sudden you're having all these occurrences. They're not coming, they're coming. And again, what's going on? So back to the doctor, you find out that here you are going through these different stages. These are very important things to be recognized. And your sleep pattern, having a good sleep pattern. I know it's hard to do that in today's world because of all these new technologies and Wi-Fi's running around and TVs being left on, but your sleep is the best time and the most nourishing moment for you, where the body puts everything together of what you've done with it today and prepares you for tomorrow with all that nourishment while you're sleeping. I call it cleaning the house. It's cleaning everything up. It's connecting everything, getting ready to cleanse out everything today so that you have a whole new slate starting tomorrow for everything else you're going to be inputting into this computer of ours, our body. It's what information that we put in for that body to understand and read the networks. It's just like a computer. If you give it the wrong information, it's not going to give you the right information back. And so understanding these things and the changes of what you're doing, really noting that, especially when you're in your 30s, going to your 40s, because it is a good time of your life and years. But knowing these things and understanding that, things have to change for yourself. You need to change. When we're 20, from being born up until, right 29, pretty much, we are fully loaded with our hormones. They're all there. They've progressed us. They've done what they were supposed to do with their design to create us, develop us. Menstrual cycles, everything's intact. The body has reacted the way it should have, and now the decline starts to take place, and that's at age 30. So there's small changes, but they start to decline, and then we decline more down as we go into 40s and 50s. And as you know, at average age 50 to 51, 52 possibly is normal menopause. And again, looking at your culture, understanding how old that menopause takes place in your culture is so important for you to be proactive in understanding these things, because even though you can have conversations with women, don't generalize just because we're all women, we all have the same kind of results and answers, because what you're going to tell me didn't relate to anything I went through. And what I'm going to tell you, you're going to be like, wow. I mean, I always wondered about different changes in women that occur and how much is measured and say, oh yeah, I had that, outside of hot flashes. Hot flashes, a lot of people do have, but the hot flashes, what happens with that is later on, it could really develop into something that really affects our cardiovascular system. So this is why getting those under control and bringing that back to balance is so important. Understanding, again, all these little signs and symptoms that we used to pioneer through, if we nip them in the bud, as they say, get a hold of them sooner than later, we'll have a bigger advantage on our life as we go through these changes, especially when you go into your 40s. 40s are like so much fun. And really, 50s are fabulous, but 40s, I just love being 40. It was just such a great time. And it's a good time to be 40. When you're 40 years old, so much wisdom has come into you through the past chambers that you've come through. You've gained so much in your journey as you're maturing. Your decisions are coming to having more value. 40s are so important, but when we have a lot of discomforts of menopause in our 40s, they're looked at more not, they're not fun. And I don't want them not to be fun. I'm not saying menopause is a fun time. It's a healing time for the body. We need to help it heal by nourishing it, giving it the rest that it needs, giving it the activation of activities by movement, lots of exercise. It's so important. Sitting in that sun, meditating, getting your mind together. Because again, you have to go to work. These things are taking place every day. You have families to take care of. A lot of people are depending on you. And the more you can take care and understand by your portion controls and regular exercise and hydration. Let's talk about that water, because the water, our bodies are made up of so much water, and this is so important to the bodies. These organs, I give you pictures because the analogies are so important. When you're looking at a dry desert, you can see the bones of that. You can see the dirt. When you're looking at an alley, if you live in a big city, you see the garbage and the junk and the gook. You see all that stuff. Well, imagine when there's no water in the body and the body's fighting to it's like a fish out of water. There's no water, and it needs to leach onto something to get that water. And so you go to sleep and you're in a valley of swamp water. And this shouldn't be how the body lives while you're sleeping. You should be drinking all that water to clean out the body and keep the body bloodlines cleaned with the water by having all the functions working. Water is so important to the body. My first thing in the morning is I have 40 ounces hot water. Love hot water. People, we start our mornings and we start with coffee, sugar things, all kinds of sweet things. A whole nother story we're going to talk about later when we get into your cortisol levels and why sugar and things like that are not really healthy for us first thing in the morning. As women, it's not. But washing out the body with water when you wake up from, as I said, last night while you were sleeping, the body was doing all the changes that it needed to do. And now if you could just rinse it out, take that internal shower, your body will have, it's like filling up a full gas tank, right? Giving it all the water that it needs so that your hair gets it, your skin, your nails, everybody gets it. Other than that, if you're deprived and depleted on water, the body's leaching off of other things. And the last thing that will be affected is going to be your hair, for sure, your skin, your nails. A lot of things happen on the skin. And when the skin is not nourished, you have to remember the skin is like a very big mouth. It's the minute you put something on it, it's straight into the blood system. Whereas when we ingest it, it has to go through trails before it comes into digestion and, hits the liver and everybody else that it needs to go through in the bloodline. But when you put things on your skin, it's a big mouth. So this is why sometimes they have patches that you put on. But I'm talking about like lotions and things like that. Depending on what the lotions are, some of them have big interrupters to your hormones. So again, there's just so much to understand about this. So the more I can get women to understand this, the more power they have, because it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while. These are small steps just to get the workplace to really notice that we need a good atmosphere. We need healthy water in our tanks there. I mean, some jobs, they used to give you water tanks and now they don't. They just connect it to the sink. And depending where you're at, that's not always going to be a good pH balance. That's why a lot of people drink water bottles. And I'm not saying that, of course, now we're coming in because of that, because of all the plastic. So there's always something, but it's those little things that we take on a daily basis to take those measures, to walk forward on this road. As I tell you, there's a progressive road and there's a toxic road. And right now, all my traffic that I see is all built up with women on that road of traffic where there's the confusion. They don't know which way to go, what lane to get in, how does this go, where do I go? And then you have the progressive lane where if you just go, you're going to meet the valleys of joy all the way through, because you're going to have the water tanks there. You're going to have the farm grown foods, no pesticides, no hormones, nothing that's being added to your body. You're going to have the supplements. Women, they don't take a lot of supplements. A lot of women that I've talked to over the hundreds of years that I've been working, supplements were not a big thing. And I really couldn't believe that, because I was 15. I started my first vitamin E, and I'm just amazed today. We're still in the same situation where they're not having the right nourishment. Our food is not, if it's not organic, our food is contaminated, as we know, pesticides, hormones, all this stuff takes away from the nourishment that should have been in there. So now, without supplements and anything to help defend inside our bodies and enhance it and give it a lift and, help it out, because again, a lot of food that we pull from the ground doesn't have all that environmental healthy stuff that we used to have. So we need to supplement. It's very important. And these are all things that, my biggest takeaway today is what I ask is that if you receive women at least by the age of 35 into 40s, getting a baseline study of your chemistry, your baseline chemistry panels of your hormones, understanding, seeing. If you're feeling changes, if you're seeing hair loss, weight gain, things that you can't understand and describe and not sure, how this is happening, by having that chemistry panel, at least you can rule things out, that it's not you're having thyroid problems. It's not that you're having certain issues taking place with your organs. Your adrenals are working really well. There's just so many things that chemistry panel will tell you and help you. And it's a baseline. And then from there on, as you continue changing and growing, you'll be able to see how you started and where you're depleting and what needs to be helped out, when you see your doctor. This way you have your symptoms, you're feeling like this or whatever, and they'll be able to help you decide the best plan for you to take action on, because it's really all up to us first. The world and the medical system is very hard right now. It's very complicated, and a lot of times it's not there for these issues, because we know that we do not have a lot of physicians that are up to date on the hormonal studies. So by finding a good practitioner that does have that practice behind him or her, that's another important issue that needs to be taking place also, because if you're talking to somebody that doesn't have all those very important understanding details to give back to you, then mostly we hear that it's your age, you're in menopause, just pretty much you're there. And they always say it's age. And menopause, again, is an age. And menopause is a process and a healing process that the body needs to shift so it could open up the new doors to let you out and reveal the real new you. The important part and the best part of you is still yet to come. But I want to get you all there by being in a healthier state, healthier mind, and a body ready to go run the fields and play and enjoy your vacations and pension checks, all those great things. And as I was saying, it's going to take a while before we can get the working industry to really understand and help us out. If we could only break down the walls of just how they serve us food, that would be a big breakthrough, because we cannot keep eating all that fried stuff. We cannot be going there and just have to settle. So the other thing on that food issue, ladies, or everyone who's listening, is really taking in control, and by bringing your own food and your own nourishment, if you're not finding that you have good access to it, especially when you're working downtown and in urban cities, big cities. I mean, some of them now have cool Whole Food stores down there. I know in Chicago they do. And that's really cool. So they can run right there. But you don't really find all those markets everywhere in those big cities. So by taking your nourishment and really supplementing, drinking really healthy water, and taking care of yourself, this is the most important thing, because it's all up to us. We have to be the ones to be in control of how we are going to balance this life on our way to better days, because there are a lot of better days coming. So I just wanted to talk to you about this perimenopause. This is unveiling things that if you hadn't thought about, these little moments that are happening to you and thinking that they are something that could be building into an issue, this is why it's important to journal, talk to yourself about it, because this is all about you. And you really want to figure this out, because we're only right now there's such a confusion, and menopause is really breaking down walls today. But when women are coming out of that, there's a lot of issues in their health challenges that are taking place. So we want to see a lot more women coming out of that, having a better life and a lot more fun to step out into that new unveiling of themselves. So I want to thank you so much for being here at Liberating Menopause. This is breaking down those walls, opening up the conversation, and bringing you great information and education to give you that balance in life, to take an active step toward finding your healthy. Everyone, thank you so much. Lisa Vasquez here. You all have a great day. Thank you.
PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.